Hi guys, my name is Hunter Kershaw, and my article is about how to have an honest conversation about your business strategy by Russell Einstadt and Michael Beer. The article starts off talking about a situation that happens with Lynn Camp, which she faced in July 2000. At the time, Lynn Camp was the vice president and general manager of SGDU, which is Allegiant Technology System Generation and Delivery Unit. Her job was to create a single global company from a set of fragmented businesses throughout Asia, Europe, and the United States. So Camp and her team adopted a functional organization structure, which basically allowed them to introduce a more efficient shared process while exiting marginal local businesses and allowed them to focus on the most promising aspects from the global perspective. Despite the strengths from the new structure, problems still emerged. When Camp analyzed the problem, she decided that the best way to improve accountability and decision making was to switch to a matrix structure. Members of the senior team thought that the matrix wouldn't work, and they were too overloaded to take on another major strategy. While searching for a new approach, she was faced with the team's inability to talk openly about its problems. This problem is common amongst teams. The lack of openness is at the core of many failures due to implement strategies. Businesses and their employees don't learn to change unless they have the courage to confront difficult truths. This part of the article directly relates to Chapter 8 and 9 of Billion Dollar Lessons. Chapter 8 and 9 are about why bad strategies happen to good people and good businesses, and how awareness simply is not enough. So the text says that people conform to the wishes of a group, especially if there is a strong person in the leadership role. Rather than raise objections that test ideas. Camp could have imposed her solution alone and had her team follow, but she knew that if she did that, she'd undermine the senior team's commitment, which is critical to making the entire structure work. She needed to find a different way. She also began to suspect that people in the group were talking about the strategy and that plenty of the managers had insights that she needed to hear. This ended up being true, and the conversations took place behind closed doors in their nature. They couldn't even mobilize the organization to address the gaps between its business strategy and the structure capabilities in the market. Contrary to popular belief, things like employee surveys, 360-degree feedback, interviews by external consultants, and even honest one-on-one conversations between key managers and CEOs typically do not help to move the organization forward. They're supposed to convince employees and management that everybody wants to know the truth and is ready to act, but this often works in the reverse. These methods lead to cynicism, which is the enemy of commitment to change. In one of the studies, a task force of respected managers rebelled when they were asked by a senior management to conduct and analyze worldwide employee surveys. They refused to get involved in yet another hopeless exercise. Meanwhile, senior managers believed that they had acted on past feedback, so everybody was left unhappy and there was no change. Einstein and Beer launched a research program to develop a process that leaders could use to engage their people in an honest conversation. The strategic fitness process was designed in partnership with the senior executives to enhance their capacity to implement strategies quickly and effectively. It does so by fitting the organization to the strategy and increasing the capacity of the organization to learn and change. Since then, this process has been used in more than 150 businesses in retail, hospitality, high technology, banking, and pharmaceutical industries. Some of the key things to remember are that it's important to craft a conversation that matters. A conversation about strategy needs to move back and forth between advocacy and inquiry. The conversation has to be about the issues that matter the most. They need to be collective and public, and by collective, they mean that all the levels of management across the important functions and value chain activities have to be engaged. And by public, they mean that the senior managers need to keep everyone informed about new information, as well as the changes that are planned. These type of conversations have to also allow employees to be honest without risking their jobs. When people hear honest, they tend to think spontaneous, but public conversations in the organization are rarely spontaneous. To achieve honesty and full engagement in these organizations, you need to structure the conversation carefully. They also need to be able to be honest without the risk of losing their jobs. So, next in the article, it had touched on the strategic fitness process, which is to start the conversation with the leadership team, draft your best managers to collect data and engage the organization in conversation, to uncover the truth while protecting the people in the conversation, to distill the conversation to the issues that matter, enable truth and speak to power, diagnose the organization and develop a plan for change, and stress test the plan. The bottom line is to better the business performance. So next in the article, it had talked about fishbowl discussion, but also in the example with Camp, she had learned that she was perceived as an authentic leader who people liked and trusted, but that she was also letting down the organization by not moving more quickly to resolve the 4 major organizational problems that they were facing in the business. Those problems were slow decision making, lack of business focus, lack of accountability, and leader ineffectiveness. All of this also still touches on the $1 Billion chapters 8 and 9. The power of direct feedback from their best people moves senior teams to effect changes that they otherwise have been reluctant to make. She, as in Camp, had pledged to do whatever it took to address the issues raised. She even offered to resign if the team found out that she was not the right person to lead SGDU, as did the rest of the senior team. But in these types of acts of encouragement, they're really not that unusual. A collective and truthful conversation enhances everyone's willingness to put the organization and its objectives ahead of self-interest. Senior teams that have engaged in this process have been able to make a dramatic change in how their businesses were organized, managed, and ran, and also in their firm's bottom line performance. So 6 weeks after Camp and her team had tested their plan with the task force, SGDU was operating as a decentralized, business-focused, accountable organization. The speed of SGDU's transformation is not uncommon. Rapid transformations like this are possible because senior management teams are made to feel accountable to the organization. The company's stock also dramatically went up since Camp had acknowledged her role in the organization's problems and responded by changing the organization and how she managed. So by enabling a complicated organizational truth to emerge, senior managers reduce cynicism. That also increases trust and helps develop selfless commitment. As a result, these type of things create a mandate for change that is even the most resistant businesses can't even resist. So overall, the article was consistent with the techniques from the book, especially chapter 8 and 9, like I previously mentioned. I very much agree with all of these teachings. Success that begins with honest conversation leads to a culture where the future conversation will further improve the performance. It's clear that there is a lot of trial and work that goes into strategic planning, but in the end, it is worth to do it the right way. Thanks for listening.